Hello and welcome. My name is Darin Hardey, and let me tell you why we're here. I'm going to show you how to 5x your output, your results, your income, and your impact over the next few years. How can I make such a wild and audacious claim? Because I will share with you exactly how I did that myself. It all started when I was given a gift, a unique tool by a 94-year-old multi-billionaire that I met in a chance encounter. The story is fascinating. I am so grateful for this gift, this tool that I was given, and the dramatic impact that it had on my life and lifestyle that I feel obligated to pay it forward. And that's what I'm doing here today, gifting it forward to you. If you ever wanted to significantly multiply your results, your income, your impact, but not have it cost you more stress, energy, or time away from your family and lifestyle, you're going to be glad that you showed up here today. This tool that takes you through a process done in under 15 minutes on Sunday shows you exactly what to do to win the week. In fact, I'm in one of the spots that I do mine every Sunday when I'm here at our place in South Beach, Miami. Here is why this process is so important. As driven high achievers, here is the constant challenge we face. We have a lot going on. Am I right? A lot of people constantly vying for our attention. At every moment, there are a lot of things that you could be doing, things that you think you probably should be doing, and things that you might even want to do. And then on top of that, there are things other people want you to do. It can be overwhelming, trying, and exhausting. And in this overwhelm, as humans, we eventually simply resort to just reacting to what comes at us, playing defense all day, all week, instead of playing the offense that we need in order to put the points on the board to win your week and achieve your big, audacious goals. This tool will fix that for you once and for all. It's that powerful. Oh, and don't worry, before we're done, I will show you how you can download this tool for yourself for free. It will be my parting gift. If it does for you what it has done for me, and now many others that I have shared this with, it could quite possibly be the best gift you've ever received. It certainly was for me. Okay, let me tell you how all this came about. It's a fascinating story and one that I promised someone to share. A little while back, my wife George and I were entertaining good friends of ours visiting us here from Dallas, Texas, and we were walking on the beach right down there. We were out taking a long walk, and it was another glorious day. The sky was bright blue. The warm sun bathed us as we strolled down the white sands of South Beach, Miami. It was a typical sultry, low 80s day here on the coast. Meanwhile, it was like 40 degrees back at their home in Dallas. As we were walking along, my friend Robert commented on how wonderful our life is. Now having a home in two beautiful places, Miami Beach and San Diego, California. And it's true. I mean, my life now is a stark contrast to how life began for me, for sure. After all, I was born into a broken, lower middle class home with a single father scrambling to try to make ends meet. I grew up far on the other side of the tracks from where I live these days. So hours were looking out to the teal blue ocean with the sun sparkling off the surface. Robert blurted out, "Man, this is really living. Your life has just skyrocketed the last few years." Robert has known me for 15 plus years. He said, "I know you've always done well, but brother," and that's how he talks, "the last few years you've really blown up in profile and impact. What's the deal? What happened? What's your secret?" he asked. And I had to think about it for a while. I mean, he was right. Later, I went back and I actually did the math. In the prior 4 years, my bottom line results and income had multiplied 5x. And more importantly, and meaningful to me, is my impact metric had multiplied well more than 5x during that same 4-year period. Thinking about Robert's question for a moment, I traced it all back to a chance meeting that I had at a party that I didn't want to go to with a 94-year-old man. I then told Robert the story of this meeting and the gift this fascinating man gave me. When I was done with the story, Robert said, no, insisted really, by continually grabbing my arm. Do you know people who do that? Grab your arm when they talk to you? By the end of the walk, I was bruised. He said, "Brother D, you have to share this story in your work." I explained. It's all detailed inside my Insane Productivity course. He said, "Yeah, But I never knew the story of where this came from. The story itself is what makes this so clear and impactful. You have to share the story, he kept insisting for the rest of our walk and the rest of his stay with us, and through perpetual texts and emails thereafter. Robert is a persistent guy, to say the least. So that is what I'm doing now, sharing the story and the tool this wise man shared with me that changed my productive future and, well, my lifestyle forever since. If it benefits you, then you'll have Robert to thank for his browbeating of me to finally sit down and share this. So, I met this 94-year-old man through another friend, Kevin. Kevin is the largest yacht broker in the world and an awesome human being. Several years ago, he invited George and me to a private party that he was showing at the boat show in Fort Lauderdale. Now, if you're a yacht broker, the Fort Lauderdale Boat Show is your Super Bowl event, and Kevin plays full out. I've never been to a boat show, and quite frankly, had no particular interest in one either. It's not really my scene. But George and I really like Kevin and his wife, so we went in honor of them. Wow, let me tell you, what a sight that is to behold. It is as if you step into an altered universe. I mean, no kidding. The surplus, the wealth, the opulence is quite unbelievable, and it's massive. I thought there'd be a few boats parked at the pier like we see near our marina here by our home, but this is an entirely different scene. Again, not really my scene, but a sight nonetheless. George and I literally got lost in what seemed like an endless sea of $50 million yachts lined one right up after the other. It's hard to describe. Imagine the parking lot at your NFL team's Coliseum, completely full. And let's say that you are dropped at the edge of it, you don't know where your friend is parked, and you just have to figure out how to find him. But instead of cars and shirtless tailgaters, it's mega yachts and endless spreads of oysters, caviar, champagne served in black tie. It's nuts. Just when you thought you were doing well, this shrinks you right back down to size. Well, we finally found the boat, if you can call it that, since it's over 200 feet long, where Kevin is throwing his party. As George and I walk in, Kevin sees us, greets us with a beaming smile and big bear hugs. Kevin is quite the charmer. Kevin then announces, "I want to introduce you to the most interesting man I know." And this is saying a lot because Kevin knows a lot of very interesting characters, being in the business of selling mega yachts to the mega wealthy. Kevin walks us up to a man sitting at a belly bar drinking a glass of white wine and says, "Darin in Georgia, meet Conrad." "Oh, call me Connie," the man extending his hand with a warm smile. "It's a pleasure to meet you both." Now, I too have met a lot of interesting people in my life, but Kevin was right. Connie ended up not only being interesting, but the guy who would change my life and lifestyle from that moment forward. Connie was 94 years old when we met him, but had the energy and vibrancy of a man 50 years his junior. The life force and vitality just roared through his eyes. Have you ever met somebody like that? A fire and a vigor that just rages in their eyes? It was captivating. While vibrant in energy, he did have the wisdom of a man his age, and who I came to find out later had amassed a multi-billion-dollar personal fortune. I only found out about those details after the party from Kevin. Conrad is one of the last real old-world gentlemen. Gracious, polite, soft-spoken, incredibly humble, and keenly interested and fully focused on whomever he's talking with. Just witnessing his mannerisms was enlightening and illuminating for me. I instantly wanted to be more like him. In talking with Connie, we learned that he did 5 European campaigns in World War II and commanded a tank that stormed Normandy. And Kevin later told us he also received the Purple Heart, several Bronze Stars for his war efforts. Incredible. But getting him to discuss his success and vast business consortium was hard to drag out of him. Luckily, I'm a professional interrogator and can be relentless when I am intrigued, and I was intrigued. Connie came from humble beginnings and started a small component manufacturing company after the war in 1947. He was an accidental entrepreneur, as he only started the company to solve a problem for the machine repair shop that he was an employee for at the time. Well, that single component manufacturing company grew into a consortium of now more than 200 privately held operating and investment companies valued today in excess of $3 billion. Now, at the age of 94, I asked him what he was doing with his time these days. He said that he recently stepped back into operating his group of companies as chairman because his son, who is the CEO, nearly 70 years old himself, had made some critical and costly mistakes. Now, very curious, I asked, "What kind of mistakes?" He looked at me with his fierce eyes and said, "He lost focus." His intensity actually startled me for a second. Then regret now in his voice. He followed that with, "Well, the sin is mine, really." "Why is that?" I asked. Connie said, "I didn't teach him my sacred focus process." Now, really intrigued, naturally, I asked, "And what is that?" That is when he got really animated, as if maybe he saw an opportunity for a bit of redemption and penance. He looked around for one of his crew members and asked politely, "Would you please find me a piece of paper?" And a piece of the yacht's stationery was quickly materialized. He flipped it over and drew a big cross on it like this. And if you have a piece of paper, you can follow along with me now. At the top, he wrote, "My divine purpose," and explained, "This is where I write my mission every week, the grand objective of my life, what I am here to do, the vision for my life." Looking at me sternly in the eyes now, he said, "You never want to lose sight of that." Then pointing to the cross, he said, "And you see this? This is the Holy Trinity, the Father, the Son, the Holy Spirit." He said, "Just like the Holy Trinity is one God in three persons, my one divine purpose is in these three goals." Now, I have to pause here for a second. Connie is very Catholic, as you can tell, so I will tell you what he told me in his words, and then we will translate it into plain language for the agnostic. Fair enough? Understand that this has nothing to do with actual religion. It is just the naming convention Conrad uses for himself. Fair enough? Okay. Conrad continued, "So, in these boxes of the Holy Trinity are my top 3 goals for the year. Never more, only 3. That's important," he said, looking me dead in the eyes. "What about this 4th box over here?" I asked, pointing to the lower right. "Ah," he smiled, "that's the devil's vortex." "Oh," I said, "that sounds scary." "It is," he said with emphasis. "It's where all the things that you're tempted to do, think that you should do, and probably want to do exist. But it's Satan distracting you from your divine purpose." Tapping his finger on the piece of paper, he said, "This is the great fight of your life, to figure out what goals will support your divine purpose, staying away from the temptations of everything else." He explained, of course, this is not easy. The temptations of everything else are very compelling and seductive. Keeping your sacred focus is hard, and it's why most don't succeed. They fall prey to devil's play. Fully hooked, I asked, "So then what do you do with this? Tell me how this actually works." He said, "Well, every Sunday I take out a single piece of paper and make my prayer for the week," he calls it. "I write down every task, every to-do, every phone call, every meeting request that I have onto this single piece of paper. Every task has to go into one of these 4 boxes. It is either a task associated with goal number 1, a task associated with goal number 2, or a task associated with goal number 3, or miscellaneous, which then goes into this lower right box." "The devil's vortex," I interrupted. He grinned, seeing that I was getting it. Then he continued, "If any task or obligation is not in one of those Holy Trinity boxes, it does not go on my schedule, period. No exceptions." He then quoted a Romans Bible verse, "Do not be overcome by evil, but overcome evil with good." He explained, "You have to separate virtuous work from false work, idolizing false gods, spending time on false work. False work can easily and quickly overcome your schedule, and this is what happened to David, my son," he said, with regret and sorrow in his voice again. David was certainly always busy, so busy that he ended up with ulcers and suffered a mild heart attack at age 60. David was in constant meetings, attending every important function, and networked with every VIP in town. But unknowingly, the work David was doing was mostly out of this 4th quadrant, the devil's vortex. It was killing him, and it was killing our companies because David wasn't doing the work he needed to be doing in his holy trinity. And all along, he had no idea he was doing it wrong. He thought he was working hard for the company, and he was, just on the wrong things. Conrad interrupted himself. Again, I don't blame David. It's easy to get misled and seduced by all these tasks and demands and not even know you're not attending to the right things if you don't have a tool to decipher it. And this is that tool, Connie said, the fire just now blazing in his eyes. Now, before I disclose the 3 other secrets that Connie gave me about how to use this tool, let me first tell you how powerful this Sunday paper is and why it has had such a profound impact on my results. 2 things in particular make this tool and process powerful. 1, it gets everything that you have swimming around in your head out onto a single piece of paper. Otherwise, those scattered thoughts have continual pull on your mind and psyche, always wondering if you've forgotten something. Research shows that is what produces anxiety. This eliminates the mental and psychic overwhelm you feel when you keep thinking of all the things you should be doing. But it is not just a to-do list. To-do lists just have you chasing your tail. So secondly, instead of just writing down your to-do list in one long list, which is what we all do, or at least I used to do, this Sunday paper requires you allocate each to-do to one of your big 3 goals. This provides stark clarity on how you are allocating your priorities. This is so powerful. Never make a single to-do list again. Assign every to-do to one of your big 3 goals or put it into the miscellaneous section, which is what? Yes, the devil's vortex. When you do this, you will come to 2 disturbing realizations. A, most of your to-dos are falling into the miscellaneous section. And without this tool, like I used to, that is precisely where you would have spent most of your time that week, giving your life force to the seductive solicitations of the devil's distractions, instead of making progress on your divine purpose. Man, I hope that you're getting this. As the Romans verse said, the only way to overcome evil is to overwhelm it with good. In this case, overwhelm the temptation of trivial, low priority tasks by overwhelming them with the vital, high priority tasks and functions, those in your holy trinity big 3 goals. Then B, you will realize how 1 or 2 of your big 3 goals is being totally neglected. This realization is often very uncomfortable, particularly on December 31st when you realize that you have failed on it. For instance, this year I have a business impact goal, I have a lifestyle goal, and I have a marriage goal. Often when I'm doing my Sunday planning and I'm done listing all the tasks, projects, and meetings for the week, I see that there's nothing in my marriage goal at all. Uh-oh. You see, it's easy to see how we can state grand intentions at the beginning of the year, but then it is overcome by the pull of other seemingly more urgent tasks, but not necessarily the most important or important long term. This weekly visual provides you with that stark revelation and forces you to bring priorities to all your holy goals. It prompts you to think proactively, creatively, and strategically to come up with some contributions to move each of the 3 goals forward each week. That's cool, right? This aligns your attention, time, and schedule to the right priorities, aligned to your big 3 goals, in alignment to your divine purpose or mission. That clarity is power. That power gives you focus. That focus provides you leverage, and that leverage is what multiplies your results, income, and impact. The greatest battle we all face as an achiever is prioritizing our attention, capacity, and productive focus. It is really easy to do this incorrectly, even when you think you're doing it right, as Conrad's son David did. What happened to David can happen to all of us, but not you, not anymore, right? Now, there are 3 other secrets that Connie shared with me that night to help me execute on my plans that end up on my Sunday paper each week. Let me touch on them briefly. You can learn much more about them inside the Insane Productivity Training course, which goes deeply into these and many other key strategies. And have no fear, I'll tell you more about how to access that here in a bit. It is one of the benefits of being with me right here and staying the course till we end. Okay. If you have a notepad ready, you're going to want to jot this down. You ready? Here's secret number one. Conrad called this his sacred demand. He explained it by quoting Luke. For everyone whom much is given, of him much be required, and from whom much has been entrusted, even more will be demanded. Connie explained, that is a sacred demand. Luke says it clearly. It is demanded of me to apply all that I have been entrusted with to the biggest goals that I can imagine, to honor my gifts from God, he said. He went on to say, you can use your life and talents to do little things or big things. And to those whom have been given much, to apply it to little things is a sin against your Creator. You heard me talk about this before, but in different language. I put it this way. The size of your life will be determined by the size of the problems you choose to solve. You can build a house or you can try to colonize Mars like Elon Musk. You can open up a local coffee shop or you can build a Starbucks network like Howard Schultz. You can launch a new e-commerce web store or you can launch Amazon like Jeff Bezos. You can get into the transportation business by opening a bike shop or you can start an airline like Richard Branson. You can impact a few people or 1,000 or 1,000,000 or even billions, all with the same talent, effort, and 24/7, 365 matrix of time. The funny thing is this, or not so funny, the bike shop guy is probably more stressed out and working longer hours than Branson does. And he might even be smarter and more talented than Branson. Branson just answered his sacred demand to go after bigger goals and tackle bigger problems than the bike shop guy did, to allocate his gifts towards bigger challenges. That's really the only difference. And of course, his ability to keep his productive focus all along the way. It's a daily battle. So secret number one is to go after big goals. That is what your Creator intended for you. That is why he is giving you this miraculous life and planted the seeds of greatness inside you to see all you could do with all you have been given. If you are here living in these miraculous times and living in a free society, so much has been given to you, and thus much is expected of you. Don't sin against your Creator. Honor your gifts. Apply it towards something great. Secret number two, write this down. Conrad called this whole heart devotion. And once again, he explained it with a Bible verse, this time from Matthew. Quote, no man can serve two masters, for either he will hate the one and love the other, or else he will hold to the one and despise the other. You might have heard me talk about the billionaire I know who gets up every day and only does one thing. Now you know who that is. It's Conrad. It's true. He only does one thing every day. Now let me tell you, it's a really big thing, but only one thing. If that one thing takes 2 hours, his day is done in 2 hours. If it takes 12 hours, he works on it for 12 hours, but only one thing each day, never two. For as he said, no man can serve two masters. To Conrad, this means two priorities. He said, it's amazing the miracles you can create each day if you give one master, one priority, whole heart devotion. Now, just for clarity's sakes, he does have a 15-minute huddle with his secretary every day. Yes, he still uses the word secretary. He's 94, man. Give him a break. This huddle is to give approvals, make decisions, and check in on his vital metrics. He said, it is forbidden for it to take longer than 15 minutes. If it does, this is a sign of my poor leadership. It makes it obvious that too much is being passed up to me. My leadership is allowed, expected to, and responsible for making decisions. Very little should require the chairman's attention. That's another great lesson. Now, here is how brilliantly all this ties together. The Sunday paper gets everything out of your head. It identifies everything that's in the devil's vortex. It makes sure that your big three goals are all moving forward and your priorities for the week are big enough to be worthy of your sacred demand. All this filters out a lot of the needless activities that would have fractured your time, energy, and attention. Now you can clearly see the few things that matter the most. Then all Conrad does is simply pick one a day, and he gives it a single-minded, undistracted, fully focused, whole heart devotion. There is massive power in that kind of focus. It's insane. Now, look, I get it. You might not be able to do just one thing all day. I haven't gotten to that nirvana yet either, but it is a goal. Don't lose the key point of picking that one thing and working on it until it's done. Then you can move on to whatever's next on your big three dock. Here's the third secret Conrad shared with me. He called this Genesis deadlines, and I love this one, something I use with my team constantly. He said, look, God created heaven and earth in 6 days, I think, to make a point, to set an example. He was showing us all what could be achieved in a week's time. If he created all of creation in 6 days, what should we expect of ourselves? I think a lot more, Connie said strongly. He went on to say, that is why I always set unreasonable deadlines. Every forecast pro forma or projection timeline that I am sent, I cut the deadline in half, often by 3/4, and I tell my staff, we're going to move heaven and earth to get it done. This pressure requires us to focus even more, to step up, to grow, and to be better than we've ever been. And guess what? Connie asked. By some miracle, we always do. It's quite miraculous. He went on to say, if God had given himself 1 billion years to create all of heaven and earth, it probably would have taken that long. But he only gave himself a week, and that's how long it took. With a sparkle in his eye, he said, we too have that kind of creative power, but we don't apply enough pressure on our talents to realize it and make our own miracles. This success tip Conrad talked about is consistent with the mindset of many of the super achievers that I have met, interviewed, and spent time with. They all have this same devotion to creating seemingly unreasonable deadlines. Not because they are unreasonable, but because it forces them and their team to rise to the challenge. As you know, the late Steve Jobs was accused of having a reality distortion field. It seemed that he was able to bend time and achieve the seemingly impossible in seemingly impossible timelines. It was precisely because of this applied pressure that these quantum leaps in outcome and results were made possible. You too can produce seemingly impossible results in seemingly impossible timelines if you use this Sunday planning tool and learn the practices of these 3 secrets. 1, find your leverage, functions, projects, and priorities to allocate your time, attention, and life force capacity to. Make them bigger problems that create bigger results so you can have a bigger impact on the lives of those around you. Number 2, find that one project and priority every day to give your single-minded, single-focused, whole heart devotion to. Those will be the small hinges that swing the big gargantuan doors of results. And 3rd, forcing Genesis deadlines on yourself, your team, your vendors, your suppliers, and your family. You'll be amazed to see what you and they can do when they are challenged to rise to the occasion. Most people lack a leader and a mentor that will challenge them and apply the needed pressure on their talents, that will draw out of them their greater potential and elevated performance and results.